Awkward again, Chad. Seem to have very
hey.
similar tastes.
Yeah, why are you wearing my blazer?
Can't do this back and forth every night. Well, welcome.
I am rocking the. I am rock. I did the YouTube thing again. I knew not to do it too, and then I got distracted by your blazer.
This literally isn't a bit, which is the best part about this.
It's ridiculous.
In a show made up almost entirely of bits, that part is not a bit.
It's sad. That's the sad part.
I feel left out tonight, guys. I really, really do. I didn't get the memo.
We'll get you one for next year. Everyone, welcome to Hoppy Hanukkah. I'm Todd Summers.
And I'm Chip Brodsky, founder and owner of City Brew Tours.
We have Bert, who we'll get to in a moment. But being that it's night 6 of Hanukkah, we are going to open our night 6 beers.
Heck yeah.
Bert, I bet you have one of these.
I am so excited. I look forward to this. This is so exciting. Each night where I get to open more beer. Like, even after Hanukkah's over, I'm just gonna maybe people will join us and just open beer out of boxes. We'll fill these boxes up again.
Reusable.
Doing it. Look at that. City Brew Tours bottle opener.
Ooh.
That's pretty
I'm still
awesome.
in the plastic. I sell that on eBay.
All right, as we grab, we're super excited. Like Todd said, we've got Bert Mooney the fourth, who's the operations director of the brewery that made this beer that I have in my hand. We're going to hear about him, Strange Roots Experimental Ale, and then the lager that we're actually going to be drinking, and what kind of beers they make. So Todd, but I think we have some housekeeping stuff that we got to do, like always, each evening.
Absolutely. So questions for the Q&A, banter in the chat. Make sure your chat messages are going to both panelists and attendees. We can just start real easy. Strange Roots lager aside, favorite beer you've had thus far through 5 nights. I'd love to see it. And also make sure that you hit up the blog, citybrewtours.com. We posted Are You As Smart as a Beer Guide, similar to a show that's very, very trademarked, but see how you do. You can get your live results. And yeah, so Chad, I'm just super excited about Bert here, Strange Roots, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A mainstay brewery on both our original and Sip of Pittsburgh tours. I was lucky enough when I was selling Pittsburgh tours, I just sent groups there all the time. Everyone loved it.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for having us this evening. It's really nice to be a part of this. And just like you said, I mean, I've been with Strange Roots for a few years now. And one of my first encounters working with Strange Roots was in the tap room. And so being able to, kind of start to see you guys come around and have those experiences with our guests has been a really, really cool way for us to connect. So thank you guys very much. So,
no, we're so excited to have you
guys.
here. Cheers.
Let's see Chad's screen go blurry.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I haven't even opened my beer. I got too excited that Bert's on the camera that I didn't even pour my beer yet. But we're going to talk about the specifics of this beer. But like, Bert, while I'm pouring this beer, do you want to tell us about yourself? Who is Bert?
Just timed out there. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Who's Bert?
Who is Bert? Everyone wants to know who you are.
Yeah. So this mysterious guy in this dimly lit room. It's terrible here. Yeah. Is that better?
You look great.
Yeah. So my name is Bert. I started working for Strange Roots. Actually, we'll back up a little bit. It was actually called Dry Log Brewing Company. You see this little guy? It's a nice little old gem from the vault. Dry Log.
Look at that is old school.
Yeah.
Should we do a taste? Should we just, before we get into Bert, I feel like people want to drink. We should just let's get that tasting.
We can totally start.
Let's get the tasting, and then we're gonna dig into your entire
The
history.
message Chad is sending is that this beer is more important than you, and I would like to know that that's only partially the case.
That's okay. I'm cool with that. I'm good to take the back seat tonight.
All right. Yeah. So lead us through this. What do we have?
Yeah. So this is called Lager Roots. This is basically just straight up American style, easy drinking lager. If we want to go through the beer appraisal this evening. As far as appearance is concerned, I get a lot of like bright golden hues Really just, I mean, you can see right through this. I think mine is a little on the hazy side. I think this may have been the last of the batch, but she's still tasty nonetheless. Yeah, a lot of like bright golden straw tones as well. So I think this one kind of stands true to style as far as the appearance is concerned. Other than that, moving into aroma, I get a lot of like soft citrus from the hops that we use. So there's Magnum, Hollader. So kind of it's like a really nice like throwback, very, very classic hop additions to that. So that kind of goes, kind of fades into that. As far as malts are concerned, that's like the biggest backbone I get with this, right? So like Pilsen, a little bit of some Vienna and some Munich. So really nice, like cracker style kind of like undertones to it. Real nice and clean and crisp. And then just kind of like moving into taste personally, this to me is like my favorite summer beer. So I don't know about you guys, but if you're just kicking it casual, I want something that's like really nice and light, a good day drinker, right? So coming in at like 4.9, lower, like mid to 4 range, you can go with this thing all day. So that's kind of like why we decided to make stuff like this. We'll kind of bump into that here in a little bit, but
yeah, you can crush this. Like this looks like Michael's like definitely a 90-degree chug kind of beer. 100%.
For sure.
Like
it's a long
and it's not like, you know, your dad's bud or, you know, things like that. I mean, I think all of our parents probably grew up in that era where, you know, it was that big, massive, you know, push for big beer. And you know, I want something like that, but I also want something that has a little bit of some weight behind it too. So this kind of does the trick for it. So that's, we're kind of psyched about this one. Other than that, I get a little bit of like some honey undertones as well, a little like residual sweetness. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys get?
I definitely get that, because I think when the first time I had this beer, I said, I was like, this doesn't taste, this is hugely different from like the classic American light lager, because there's something about it, and it took me a minute. And I think what I was picking up on, I mentioned this a million times, like I'm a sweet tooth guy, and I think it's that honey.
I get like a graham cracker almost. So like, and I think that's actually what graham crackers are. It's just like honey and a cracker. So
very
deceiving. I get
no, that's
so, yeah, I hear that.
Cool. And then kind of moving into the finish, I guess that kind of ties in with it. I'm sorry, mouthfeel rather.
Stephanie gets coffee. I think she's drinking the wrong beer. Stephanie, you might be drinking the wrong night beer. I'm just throwing it out there.
Coffee as in like, just so maybe there's like a language issue, coffee like Starbucks espresso, like this.
I could see like a roasty kind of a quality to it for sure, like a light roast. Yeah, sure.
Blonde ale, maybe.
Yeah.
Blonde, super blonde roast.
Very summery. And then just I guess like moving into mouthfeel. I mean, it's pretty true to style with that. It's very smooth. It's very light bodied. It's designed to be, again, like a nice all day kind of easy drinker. So yeah, kind of soft there. And then I guess for finishing notes, I get a lot of like that cracker biscuit. Again, like that malty sweetness kind of lingers around and just kind of finishes really hard there. A little bit of like some soft citrus on the back end from those hops as well. So yeah, just a nice easy drinking beer.
Deborah said latkes, 100%. This is gonna go so well with latkes. So anyone's eating latkes tonight for dinner, I already ate mine. I need to make more, but this would be the beer. So
yeah,
so
totally.
So Bert, very technical question. Lager roots. Where'd the name come from?
Yeah.
If this is too hard, you can pass.
There.
Yeah. Like we say on tours, there are no hard questions on a beer tour.
Yeah. We have, I think the biggest thing that we wanted to convey with this brand was that it's not designed to complicate. It's designed to be very straightforward and super easy. And so it wasn't, a matter of like not putting the time into naming it something cool and creative and weird. We just kind of wanted, I guess, basically to be very transparent with that. And kind of to piggyback off of that, we we were around a number of years ago. We actually started at, I think it was 2012 is when Dry Log first started. And so I joined the company probably about 3 to 4 years ago. And in that point in time, we actually went from being Dry Log, which was it was specifically just a wild-based brewery. So all barrel-aged sours, crazy wild culture stuff, to changing our name and rebranding and actually starting to be able to produce things like lager, and beautiful like barrel-aged stouts and IPAs and things like that. So as far as from like a technical standpoint, a lot of breweries you see don't usually do that kind of cycle. It's usually clean beer into the more challenging wild fermentation. And we kind of took the step and kind of went around it and did it the other way, which is kind of true to kind of what we do. So
you guys just went the complete opposite direction. No one's going in a sour brewery
let's take the most challenging things and
making clean beer.
So yeah, that's kind of like the idea is, we took some of that stuff and we're able to, produce now some really nice, clean, easy drinking beers. And I think the biggest thing was at the end of the day, we all kind of sat down and we were like, look, sometimes I just want to crack a lager. Like I may have some PBR in my fridge. I'm not going to lie. May have just outed myself.
I mean, no, that and I think that's a great point, and we talk about it a lot. And like, we have a couple guides who like won't drink anything that isn't like super bourbon barrel aged. But like, my question to them is like, what do you do in the middle of the summer? Like, it gets hot. Like it's hard when it's 95 degrees. Like
Belgian quad.
Yeah, right.
Beer that doesn't exist.
Hard. And hey, we do have a question right off the bat, and it's specific to the beer. So when you were talking about malt, you named 3 German cities. It was Pilsner, Vienna, and Munich. So why are those malts named after German cities?
Vienna is not just Austrian. I studied Vienna, Austro-German. Just throwing it out there.
I don't have a globe handy. Sorry.
Yeah, I would stretch to imagine that's obviously where it was from originally. So yeah, cool. Much like anything, I think again with like things like lager, we didn't get too creative on the naming. It's it's where it's from.
Perfect. That's a great answer.
People want to know about the can art.
Can
art is just.
I was kind of hoping that somebody would ask about that.
God, you put it to the close up because if I do it, I'll be blurry.
Yeah, we'll never see you again.
Yeah, you seem to have that. Yeah, there we go. That's good.
Look at that. That is so awesome. That is such cool artwork.
Yeah,
it reminds me of like a Magic the Gathering. I used to play Magic the Gathering. I'll admit it. It was cool.
I could see
in high school, but it looks like that's what the art it reminds me of. Like,
thank you. Yeah, the gentleman who does all of our can art, or the bulk of our can art, his name is Chris Smith. You should check him out. He does a ton of really, really cool stuff. It's nice to have somebody who we can basically just kind of like throw an idea down for a beer essentially, and then have him just kind of come back with these crazy creations. And so he's been a joy to have on deck for sure.
That's awesome. Really cool.
So as the operation director of Strange Roots, that's a pretty fancy title.
Oh, for sure.
People want to know what a day in the life of Bert is at one of the most popular breweries in PA. Then paint a picture. Maybe you wake up, you eat breakfast. I mean, I assume because you work at a brewery, you're eating spent grain.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have to, like breakfast of beer champions, right? Get in your car. What music are you? What's the song that you're putting on to go to the brewery?
Man. It totally depends, because it's like it depends on what kind of a day you're gonna have, right? So it's like Monday. I feel like I always start off Mondays like with the right foot, right? Like I'm getting up early, like I have like a cup of coffee in my system before I hit the shower, and then I get another one because because it's Monday. But that's like Monday, I think for me is like the biggest day because it sets the tone essentially for the rest of the week. So I like to hit it hard. And then, we're usually in pretty early. And so we, again, have a very, very small staff. There's 3 of us that are in production right now. And then we have a couple other guys that work with us as well on the fly. But yeah, so like Mondays are like a big admin day for me. And so like I'll come in, make sure everything is scheduled out for the week essentially. And then I also do like a lot of our distribution, like I handle a lot of our distribution as well. So I'll make sure to, connect.
You guys have just for people because they're all over the country. You have the most widely distributed beers in PA, right? You're like like 30 plus.
Stretch to say that we're up there for sure. Yeah. We actually many moons ago partnered with Sheldon Brothers back in the day, and I think that Dennis said that we were like one of like their first original US brands. So that's kind of like a cool thing to
That's awesome.
say. But yeah, we've been around doing distro for a good bit through Sheldon Brothers. So that took us across the US and then internationally as well. So we have a couple cool places where you can find our stuff overseas. But yeah, so I usually kind of reach out to our contacts on Mondays and schedule that stuff. What's up?
Are you just scheduling or are you doing any sales?
I basically facilitate, like we have a on the ground sales team that we partner with. It's like a secondary source essentially here in Pittsburgh. It's called Pennsylvania Libations. So they're one of the, I think they're the first independently owned liquor store. And so they do like all of like our sales for us. So it makes it very, it makes my job a lot easier because I can just basically like outsource some of the legwork and then they're able to help us. So that way I can focus on making sure our team is running well. So yeah, that's super helpful. So I have a really good relationship with them. They have a number of sales reps that we have meetings and we talk about, what's coming up, what's going on, and then just kind of like different things that are going on right now. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then we also partner with, we have a larger distribution channel in Philly as well, or in like the Philly area. It's called Shangy's, the Beer Authority. And so they do some really, really cool stuff. And they've been around for a long time and they've been great assets to us, especially during COVID right now. So I'm sure that you've probably heard from a lot of places that, sales channels are dried up right now. And it's very, very difficult to move stuff. So it's been a lifesaver to have those people with us. So yeah. So then
what part of the day you're at the brewery, you started your admin work? When do you start like shotgunning beers? Like how does that work into your day? I haven't worked at a brewery. I just assume that's like an hourly process.
It's a normal thing. Yeah, right. I hate to burst the magic bubble. Every once in a while, it does happen though. I did have that happen to me once. It was a joke, but I'm not gonna go into that right now. Anyway, we definitely do a lot of things early in the morning for sure.
What's up? Not an hour in the day that just it hits 3 o'clock and everyone just stops what they're doing and just.
I kind of like Willy Wonka's factory.
That would be that would just be insane.
If there's lines like tap lines in every room in the brewery.
If we were just on
we're pretty good.
God, imagine just having a tour going and all of a sudden everyone just stops what they're doing and just shotguns a beer, all the brewery employees. It would be magical.
It's hard for me to hear about places that I perceive being wildly fun because that's my main experience of them being like very serious places, but it's like it's your job, so that's incredible. So we tried it. Yeah, you have to work and things like that. Is that what you're going to say? You're just going to like keep digging the knife. So a real question.
Make things happen.
A real question. So we haven't talked too much on the souring portion of the experience. We haven't gotten into the experimental
Sure.
ales yet. So, one, with that in mind, I'm very curious for the chat to know what the craziest beer that they've ever chugged / shotgunned is, because I'm sure that there are some wild ones out there. But a souring program is very technical, like you said. There's a ton that goes into it. It's very difficult, but it's also from like a cleanliness perspective, which we talked about with Andrew last night when we were interviewing the Cicerone about how breweries are really clean. Souring can be sort of infectious in terms of what it does to beers, and this is a very clean beer. So you have this beer that's pristine, and then you have these beers that are doing the funkiest of stuff. I've been to your building. How do you manage that? How do you keep everything safe?
There is a rigorous cleaning regimen that goes into that, and it's based off of, doing the same step-by-step procedures every single time and ensuring that we're able to mitigate any kind of infection, because you're right. I mean, we literally have hundreds of barrels on walls that are just brimming with beautiful bacteria, but I don't want that to end up in my lager can at all. It's going to ruin it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a ton of cleaning that goes into that. I don't know how many breweries in the area or if at all use ozone. I think that there are some of them that do. We do use some ozone in like our barrel room, just to kind of like for like sanitation as well, and then standard caustic cleaning as well. So there's, like I said, there's a ton of cleaning that goes into that. So and then it's just being careful with everything, just trying to mitigate that. So, but yeah, safety first.
I mean,
again, all of these places that I perceive as fun, just like,
yeah, we're pretty rigid.
yeah, being like you're just like so on top of stuff. It's
Bert's
great
a
to
jerk.
hear. Yeah, it's like, okay, Bert and his like very, very successful brewery. Like, we get it. No, that's incredible.
No, yeah, we do build in some time in the schedule for fun.
I would assume as much.
We didn't do any sours in the box just because of that, trying to keep that kosher component of how beer we talked about in the first night, Reinheitsgebot, German beer purity law. Like, so getting it when you start adding those bacterias and all the you don't know what's going in your beer. It could be yeast from your beer. You just don't know. And you guys have done some crazy yeast cultivation, right?
Robert's question here. It says, what is the most experimental ale?
Good question.
The most of the most. I can think of a couple right now, and I'll start with like what I feel like is probably our most widely received one, and that's called Grand Blue. So Grand Blue is a beer that we're extraordinarily proud about, and that beer has actually, that's one of the beers that we make that has gone overseas, is in Belgium at certain bars and at certain festivals. So you can find that over there every once in a while. But so Grand Blue is actually, it is a beer that we make with two parts of a story here. So the primary fermenting yeast that we use in that is called our Relic strain, or it's from our Relic beer. And so Relic was a beer that we were able to culture up from, I believe it was from a 16th century door. So our owner, I know, right? Come again?
That is crazy.
Door.
16th
That's a door.
Yeah. So our owner, Dennis, is like he's a great like science guru. He's somebody to like, I'm inspired when we have these conversations together, because just the way he thinks about things, it's really fascinating for me. And so he was gifted a door from a French monastery that was dating back to like the 1600s. And so his brain went into this like cool mode where he's like, man, I wonder if there's any yeast in this door, like in the wood, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. So like there's the old way of preserving furniture involved, giant coats of wax essentially, just to kind of like keep everything buried in, right? So he's digging away, and then does a culture swab and is able to actually grow up a wild yeast culture. And I kid you not, the first time that I ever tried that beer, I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. Like, how do you get a beer to taste like a door? Like, how do you get it to taste like wood almost? You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. So that was like the pinnacle point for me, like knowing this is kind of like a cool, like the light bulb went off and I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, so long story short, so we use that yeast to ferment out this beer that's called Grand Blue. And so Grand Blue, with the utilization of that yeast, it's all barrel aged. And then here's the other cool step process that we do.
When you say barrel aged, can I interrupt for 1 second? Barrel aged,
Yeah.
You mean these are, just describe what a barrel aged is in 3 sentences. It's a barrel.
Yeah. So yeah. So like a lot of places will use the term barrel aged or like cask aged when they're referring to like big hearty stouts or whatever, where you're getting like the spirit flavor profile. We tend to use, we do use a lot of those as well for certain projects. But a lot of the wild-based cultured beers that we make need extended maturation time, or they just need extended aging time. So what we'll do is we'll brew them, and then we'll let them sit and ferment over a period of a year to 3 or 4 years, just depending upon that style or what we're going to use it for. And so that beer in particular will sit in casks and barrels and will age appropriately. And then what we do is we actually take a layer of, or a culture rather, of penicillium. So if you're familiar, I know, right? If you're familiar with Roquefort blue cheese, it's this really cool like cave age style blue cheese. So they had this idea and they're like, man, I wonder if we can put this together and like see if it works. And it sure does. And this is the neat thing too, science. You can actually see like the blue cheese like culture on top of the beer itself. And you can see these sweet little floaties coming down, and it looks like how when you see like a blue cheese wheel, there's little like blue spots and stuff. It's really, really neat. Anyway, so
and this started from a beer from a door.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it's
does it have a blue cheese like flavor profile?
Yeah,
like you get that like I don't know what that term for that funk.
Absolutely,
yeah. That stank.
He's got a lot of funk.
That is awesome.
And then so to round out,
what kind of barrels? So we got a question about what types of barrels are you guys using for like that particular beer, and does it matter?
It totally does, because if you think about it from a biological standpoint, each barrel is its own ecosystem essentially, right? So there's tons of space and cracks in the staves of the barrels for all those microorganisms to flourish. And so, you know, from a blending standpoint, we have a number of barrels right now that are designated for, you know, super funky casks, casks that are really soft, and then we put all of like our spontaneously fermented wort in and let them ferment with those cultures. And then you have other ones that, you know, throw different kinds of flavors, or like wine barrels, or were spirit barrels like Lefroy barrels or brandy barrels and things like that. But yeah, they all have their own like different kind of sense essentially.
Does that impact? Does that make quality control difficult if you have all sorts of barrels? Like, are you getting like if you're making this this wood door blue cheesy beer, is that one hard to replicate across the barrel lives? Like, is each batch going to be slightly different?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the thing that I find, or that we find to be extremely rewarding, is that not every single batch you make is ever going to be the same. And there's kind of like that fluidity of understanding that it's not, and there's that, you know, our artistry that's behind that, where, you know, from a quality standpoint, we're not trying to necessarily create the same thing year after year. And that's also why we put vintage statements on things. So much like wine, you can see year to year, you know, when we're open fermenting, there's different cultures that we're coming through the year, you know. So it's Yeah.
And you guys have a cool ship. I don't know if people are familiar with what a cool ship is, but that's a pretty impressive piece of equipment to have at a brewery.
Yeah.
Do you want to just give a quick rundown of what a cool ship is?
Yeah, cool ships are this really interesting tool. It looks like a giant stainless steel bathtub, but it's not. It's very expensive. It's a tool.
Making beer in a bathtub.
Throw it back.
We spend a good bit of our time because that's what our previous company Drylog was based on, was doing spontaneous fermentation and wild barrel cultured or beer, and so that for us, cool shipping is like a time honored style tradition, right? So we look back at like some of those old Belgian breweries, and that's where we have drawn inspiration from. And so if we're able to basically create something here in Western Pennsylvania that is able to kind of mimic some of those things that you would find in Belgium, that's kind of a cool thing. So essentially a cool ship, they come in different sizes, they come in different formats, but it's basically like an open fermenter. So ours in particular is, I think it's 15 barrels, but it's basically like a rectangle, like an open rectangle with a giant pipe that goes into it, into like a basket. And so the thought process with that is that you would brew your beer like you normally would, and instead of knocking out and cooling and then putting it directly into your fermenter, it goes into the cool ship. And so this goes against all traditional logic when making normal beer.
Like, make a beer, put it in the bathtub. It's fine.
Just put it up there. It's fine. Yeah.
Just throw it in the
and open the windows. I think you should just
see what
open
happens.
all the windows. Let whatever.
Like a bird flies in. Cool.
Bring your friends.
No, but we do take a number of steps in order to, you know, there's I joke about this, but there is a lot of science that's behind it right now. But yeah, you know, you want to make sure that once that wort goes into your cool ship, we're going to let it sit there overnight, and we're going to let it gradually fall down to room temperature. And there's a couple of reasons why we do that. And so when we put our wort in, we'll open up, we have like a couple big bay garage doors in our facility. So we'll open them up and just kind of let the air run through. And the reason that we do that is because within your air source right now, at any given point in time, there are millions of microorganisms, right? Some good, some bad. And so we know from a biological level or a biological standpoint that there are appropriate times during the course of the year in which it's safer for us to open ferment. And those seasons are right essentially now. So it's any time that the ambient temperature is below 50 degrees for a consecutive period of time. So, you know, over the last couple of years, that's kind of getting pushed back a little bit more. You used to be able to, you know, go and do spawn season in October, November, December. So we're definitely at that point now where we can start to do that comfortably. And then you usually have until probably about March or April at like the absolute latest. So.
Because cool ships, there's a geographic component of breweries that have traditionally used cool ships, right? I feel like there's like a part of the country, maybe it's like towards Prince Edward Island in Canada, where it's just like they have a better climate. Is that accurate?
I would stretch to imagine that's very accurate for sure. And I can kind of speak to this briefly on a smaller microclimate level, in that, you know, we were in a facility a couple of years ago that was off of, not directly off of a major highway, but off of a busier road. And now we're out in the middle of the woods, essentially, or we have trees and fields and stuff. And we found that absolutely hands down, over the last couple of years of being in this new facility, the product quality has gone up exponentially because it's a lot softer, it's less aggressive, and, you know, there's better microbiota within that area. So
we got a shout out to Route 8 in the chat.
I'm like Route 8. And we got some questions. Some questions from. We got to get to some of this Q&A stuff. So, Levitt Brodsky clan. What was the most unexpected delicious flavor you've ever appeared in a beer that you weren't expecting?
Yeah. So I could probably answer, and again, I'm not probably the most tenured person in the company, but I can tell you the one that stands out for all of us, hands down, was one of the ones that I experienced, and that was it was one that we made. It was called Goshen, and it was made with it was a
Indiana?
LaCroix barrel aged darker. I think it was a stout at that point, and it was made with caviar, oysters.
Caviar?
There was,
Is that
yeah,
what you said?
yeah,
Okay.
for
Just
sure.
making sure
Yeah.
I heard
Oh, and
correctly.
seaweed. Yeah. Dude, it was it was probably like the most like umami bomb style beer I've ever had in my life, but somehow it worked and it was amazing. And like we go to talk about that beer all the time. It's like I really wish somebody had a bottle of that lying around.
It's sour though, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
sour.
That's
That sounds
incredible.
crazy. Sounds
So-
definitely not kosher, but sounds incredible.
So it sounds like, I think I'm gonna accept the answer from the spontaneous, like the Colship answer is like how you design a brew, because I think you sort of walked us through that you're sort of like gonna get it into spaces where like excellence and wild and like crazy stuff happens. But what do you think in terms of, I guess this question is asking really like, do you think, you've probably tasted beers that have a million different flavors? Do you think it's important for a brewery to be able to like create a lot of different great things? Or do you, and I guess I have a feeling we can all guess your answer to this because you've done it, but what do you think about breweries that are sticking to like 2 or 3 beers and making them sort of perfect and, having this really like this streamlined portfolio? It sounds like it's probably not going to be the route you guys would go, but like, when did you make the conscious decision? It seems like from the onset to just kind of like get weird.
I think that's always something that we've done, and Dennis has been very good. Dennis, our owner, has been very good and very encouraging to us to explore essentially. And I come from I've worked in like higher end restaurants, and that was kind of like the thing. Like when I left the restaurant industry, it was a restaurant that was heavily focused on fermentation, and there was a lot of exploratory science that went into that. And I brought some of that to the table here, and that's like they've been very, very encouraging of that. And so, I think currently, and I'm sure you guys can probably mirror this, but the current beer market, I would say, doesn't tend to gravitate towards flagships like we used to, 10, 15 years ago. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because that's actually something that we've started to do, is to have a seasonal portfolio essentially where, we can forecast, these beers are coming out within the next year. These are like constant things that we know are proven concepts and that work. So, there's a certain level of experimentation that still goes on here. But we're also taking some of the notes from those experiments and implementing them into what I would say are probably better business practices.
So
It makes a ton of sense.
So I just want to say this has been awesome. I'm also really in the mood for salad. And when I eat my salad, I typically use oil and vinegar. It's just like, that's my go-to for dressings. I just wanted everyone in the audience to know that I'm trying to watch my weight, and salads, oil and vinegar is my thing. Todd,
I have so much apple cider vinegar in my house. We use it on everything. We use it when I do a lot of barbecuing. It's a great to mix with apple juice and spray during the smoking process. I wanted everyone to know that I'm a big apple cider vinegar fan.
This is good.
What's your take, Bert, on vinegar?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought this up.
So, in a completely streamlined and not out of the blue.
Non-scripted. You guys. I feel like we've known each other for years. So I actually, my evening job, I actually started a few years ago, conceptually, a company that's called Native Vinegar. So you see the bottle there? There we go. So the company is called Native Vinegar, and the conceptual idea was kind of, came around from while I was working in the restaurant industry. I was home brewing for a number of years, really fell in love with wild-based fermentation. And the reason for that is because I find that there are an overabundance of complexities that you get with wild-based fermentation that you cannot mimic with that of clean-based fermentation. And so I was finding that from like a culinary standpoint, I was getting bored with what was available. And so I started experimenting at home and playing around with some small batches. And then I started making, for the restaurant that I was working for, I cultivated a vinegar program for them. And it did pretty well there. And so after I had left the restaurant industry and was working at Dry Log and Strange Roots, I was able to put myself into a better position to start working on my goal of opening up Native. And so Native is a very small company that, again, specializes in spontaneously fermented vinegars. So you get any of those kind of like beautiful, funky, like just.
But I have a question, Bert.
Yeah.
So you're saying while you're using same terms as you just used to describe the rest of Strange Roots beer portfolio. So I'm confused in the sense, is the brewing process and fermentation process the same when it comes to making vinegar? I've never made vinegar before. So
yeah,
similar terms.
They co-align themselves very much so. So the actual brewing process of vinegar and beer are the same essentially, right? So we're making a malt base. Okay. And then we're going to ferment it like you would normally. And then you turn it into alcohol. And then vinegar at this point in time then takes secondary base fermentation. And so we take our malt or our beer or alcohol at that point in time, and then we put it into a second step of fermentation in which we introduce Acetobacter. And so during that point in time, Acetobacter actually eats the alcohol and converts it into acetic acid or vinegar. So
and that's hard, and that happens also with sour beers as well, right? Because you have acetic acid in sours, right?
That can absolutely show itself, absolutely. And there's two main causes for that. So one of which is standard oxidation, where in those barrels they're getting a little bit of some oxygen pickup. And then secondly, certain strains of Brett will actually convert and will throw acetic acid for sure. So.
Cool. That's super cool. So Bert, let us in. What does Strange Roots have coming down the pipe? What should we be on the lookout for? What's exciting? I know it's COVID time, so people might have to wait a little bit to show up and you get to see their faces in person, but
sure.
What's next?
Yeah, today we actually just had a double can release. We have a new line of IPAs that are out that are fruited smoothie style IPAs. It's called Smooth Criminal. And so that is, it's a mango, banana, and coconut based fruited IPA that was dry hop with Sabro hops. So that one's really good. It's like a nice, like easy little drinker. And then we also came out with, it's called the Kool-Aid. And so the Kool-Aid is a fruited sour that has a ton of Concord juice in it. It literally, it's a good time for sure. It's like when you were a kid and you had like the Welch's Pops or whatever, but it has booze in it.
You're speaking my language. These are the words I crave when I hear about IPAs. I just want you to keep talking. This is the best.
Yeah. And then we have, other than that, we have a couple really cool, like big stouts that we've been working on. They're all barrel aged. So I know we have one that has some toffee in it, cacao nibs. And then we have another one that has a ton of caramel and chocolate as well. So a lot of like big dessert beers coming down the pipeline. So yeah, I'm pretty psyched, man. Yeah.
Sounds so good.
Anything distro for those outside of the PA state?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So we do partner again with Tavour and a couple other like larger beer subscription companies. So Tavour recently just picked up another variant of our lager that you just tried tonight. It's called Lager Lime. So really nice, same base beer, but with hand squeezed and zested lime. So nice little easy day drinker there as well. Yeah. And then we also have the Kool-Aid that just went out to them as well. So if you guys are outside of Pennsylvania, you should be able to log into your Tavour app and snag those guys.
Definitely got to do that.
I don't know. I think Vermont doesn't have apps yet, unfortunately. So I might have to have Chad get it for me.
You guys don't even have cell service in Vermont, so
it's a problem. I really don't think we have that option, but I'm gonna try to find a way to get that. We have
have Tavor either, unfortunately.
Bert, this has been truly a pleasure. The door story there's a brewery that made a beer with goat brains that I actually wrote about on the blog for Kosher Beers Night 1, and I think the door story might be my new favorite like beer creation story.
Sweet.
Another PA beer.
Yeah,
though.
you can look it up. If you go to check it out, just like type in dry log and then look up the beer relic. So there's like a full write up on that. Yeah, pretty sweet.
That's the coolest thing in the world.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, Chad's gonna light the candle, say the prayers tonight.
Am I? I don't know if Liana is gonna be here to support that. And I don't know if my confidence level is there for that. I guess we could. I need to check to see how many candles I have though. Definitely don't have enough candles. I could probably fix that.
Chad's gonna make it happen. We're gonna help him. We're gonna support him.
Is it kosher to remove candles from one menorah to put it on another menorah?
Kosher is the wrong word, but yes, you can do that.
No, obviously you can use kosher in that term. This is nerve-wracking. I don't know if I want to do this.
We believe in you.
You can.
Oh no. Can you guys see this trouble?
You're getting so much. You're getting so much. So many people are saying nice things about you in the chat. In the chat, not the chat. We were having this problem. It's very similar.
It is. Can you guys
Chad's
see
also
this?
blowing up our spot that we don't have matching pants.
Oh.
They were way more. They were so much more expensive to add, like the matching pants. We couldn't afford to do it. All right.
You guys should share them. You know, you could do like
the Brotherhood of the Traveling Suit Pants.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim l'avoteinu hayamim hahem b'zman hazeh. Boom.
Chad, that was so good.
Done.
So good. Everyone is so proud of you. So
I was so nervous. Like I usually have Liana here to help, and she's just watching TV instead of helping me. But that's okay. I still love her very much.
You did a great job.
Bert,
all right, guys.
We can't thank you enough. citybrewtours.com/Hanukkah. Someone asked about tomorrow night's offering. They were curious if there were any darker beers. I would suggest that maybe you tune in tomorrow. I think the beer might be darker. I don't know. I can only pontificate at this point. So we will see you then. Thanks again, Bert.
Don't forget
Chad?
to take the quiz. Definitely take the quiz if you haven't done it. Again, citybrewtours.com/Hanukkah. Bert, you're the man. Thank you so much for being here.
Guys.
Happy Hanukkah, everyone, and we'll see you on tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow.
Cool.
Bye.